We've all been there. You're in a conversation, and suddenly you realize the person you're talking to either can't or won't follow basic logic. Maybe they're clinging to an obviously false belief. Maybe they're getting defensive over nothing. And you feel that familiar frustration rising. Mark Twain put it perfectly. Never argue with a fool. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. But here's the thing, we can't just avoid everyone who thinks differently. So what do? How do intelligent people navigate a world full of, let's be honest, not so intelligent thinking? Today we're going to explore this through the eyes of Norwegian philosopher Peter Zapffe, whose ideas about human consciousness might change how you see this problem entirely. Peter Zapffe was a 20th century Norwegian philosopher, mountaineer, and one of the most fascinating pessimists you've never heard of. While Schopenhauer is famous for philosophical pessimism, Zapffe took it somewhere darker and stranger. His central idea? Human intelligence is actually a biological tragedy. Think about that for a second. We celebrate intelligence as humanity's greatest gift, but Zapffe argued it's more like a birth defectan evolutionary overshoot that makes us aware of things we can't handle. We're conscious enough to ask the big questions, but not equipped to live comfortably with the answers. Animals don't worry about the meaning of life. A deer doesn't have an existential crisis, but we do, because our consciousness exceeded what we actually needed to survive. We're too smart for our own good. This creates what Zapffe called the cosmic panic, the horror of being aware of our own mortality, meaninglessness, and cosmic insignificance. So how do humans cope with this unbearable consciousness? Zapffe identified 4 psychological defense mechanisms that most people use to avoid confronting reality. Number 1, isolation. We block out disturbing thoughts. We don't think about death, suffering, or meaninglessness most of the time because we've learned to compartmentalize. Number 2, anchoring. We attach ourselves to values, goals, careers, relationships, anything that gives us a sense of purpose and stability, even if it's ultimately arbitrary. Number 3, distraction. Entertainment, work, hobbies, social media. We keep ourselves busy so we don't have time to think too deeply. And number 4, sublimation. We transform our existential dread into art, philosophy, religion, or other culturally valued expressions. Here's where it gets interesting. Different people use these mechanisms with different levels of awareness. When Zapffe talked about intelligence, he wasn't measuring IQ scores. He meant something deeper, the capacity and willingness to face uncomfortable truths without immediately retreating into comforting illusions. Most people, Zapffe observed, are masters of self-deception, not because they're stupid in the traditional sense, but because confronting reality fully would be psychologically unbearable. So they cling to their anchors: religion, nationalism, consumerism, whatever works, and they defend these anchors fiercely. Intelligent person, in Zapfe's view, is someone who has weakened defenses. They see through the illusions more clearly, and this makes them profoundly uncomfortable to be around. When you challenge someone's anchor, their religion, their political identity, their life choices, are not just disagreeing with them. You're threatening the psychological structure that keeps their cosmic panic at bay. Of course they're going to react defensively. Of course they're going to seem irrational. They're fighting for their sanity. This is why arguing facts rarely works. You're not in a debate about facts. You're in a psychological battle over existential terror management. Zapffe believed that the more intelligent you are, the less you can rely on comforting illusions, the more you suffer. Clear sight comes with a cost. He wrote, "The tragedy of a species becoming unfit for life by over-evolving one ability is not confined to humankind. Thus it is thought, for instance, that certain deer in paleontological times succumbed as they acquired overly heavy horns. The mutations must be considered blind. They work, are thrown forth, without any contact of interest with their environment. In other words, just as a deer can grow antlers so large they become a liability, humans evolved consciousness so sharp it cuts us. So when you, as someone who thinks deeply, encounter someone who seems to be sleepwalking through life, understand this. They're not necessarily stupider than you. They're just using stronger defenses, and those defenses are working for them, at least for now." Here's where Zapffe philosophy becomes practical. If you accept his premise, it changes everything about how you approach these interactions. Let me give you 8 strategies. Strategy 1. Recognize what you're really dealing with. You're not dealing with stupidity. You're dealing with psychological self-preservation. That person who won't accept climate science, They've built their identity around a worldview where they're not complicit in catastrophe. The person who clings to obviously false political narratives, those narratives protect them from confronting uncomfortable truths about power, injustice, or their own complicity. Understanding this doesn't mean you agree with them. It means you stop expecting logic to work when you're dealing with emotional infrastructure. Strategy 2. Don't assume your clarity is a gift. Zapffe would remind you that your ability to see through illusions doesn't make you happier or more functional. In fact, it might make you more miserable. The person you're arguing with might be wrong, but they might also be sleeping better at night than you are. There's a kind of arrogance in assuming everyone wants or should want your level of awareness. Some people have looked into the abyss and consciously chosen to look away. That's a valid survival strategy. Strategy 3. Choose your battles based on stakes, not principles. If someone's illusions are actively harming others, promoting violence, spreading dangerous misinformation, enabling injustice, then, yes, you have a reason to engage. But if Uncle Bob believes something dumb at Thanksgiving dinner and it doesn't actually matter, let it go. Your mental energy is finite. Zapffe believed that intelligent people should conserve their psychological resources because they're already carrying a heavier burden than most. Don't waste your energy on battles that don't matter. Strategy 4. Use Socratic questions, not declarations. When you must engage, don't attack someone's anchor directly. Ask gentle questions that let them examine their own thinking. That's interesting. What makes you think that? How would you test whether that's true? What would change your mind? Sometimes, not always, but sometimes people will talk themselves into recognizing contradictions without you having to point them out. And when they do, they're less defensive because it feels like their own realization. Strategy 5. Accept that you might plant seeds, not harvest crops. Real perspective shifts take time. Someone who seems completely closed-minded today might think about your conversation months or years later and realize you had a point, but you probably won't be there to see it. If you need immediate validation, you'll be constantly frustrated. If you can accept that influence works slowly and indirectly, you'll be more patient. Strategy 6. Practice strategic silence. Zapffe advocated for a kind of philosophical withdrawal. Not complete isolation, but a recognition that some conversations are unwinnable and participation is optional. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's the smartest response. Let someone's bad argument hang in the air without dignifying it with a rebuttal. Let them fill the space. Often they'll reveal the weakness in their own position without your help. Strategy 7. Find your own people. This is crucial. Zapffe believed that intelligent people suffer more because they're isolated. If you're constantly surrounded by people who think you're crazy for questioning basic assumptions, you'll start to doubt yourself or become bitter. Find communities online or offline where you can have the deeper conversations you crave, where you don't have to dumb yourself down or pretend, where your refusal to accept comfortable lies is understood and appreciated. This isn't about creating an echo chamber. It's about creating a base of psychological support so you don't burn out. Strategy 8. Develop compassion for the human condition. Here's the heart of Zappeffe's philosophy. We're all trapped in the same existential predicament. Some people just have better coping mechanisms than others. The person who irritates you with their shallow thinking, they're just another human trying to survive the curse of consciousness. They're doing it differently than you, maybe less honestly, but with the same basic goal: to get through life without falling apart. You can disagree with someone's beliefs and still recognize your shared humanity. You can think someone is wrong and still have compassion for why they need to be wrong. Zappeffe's philosophy contains a paradox. The smarter you are, the more you suffer. But also, the more aware you are of this trap, the better you can navigate it. You can't escape the burden of consciousness, but you can stop expecting everyone else to carry it the same way you do. You can stop being angry at people for protecting themselves in ways you've chosen not to. And here's the thing maybe that makes you freer than you think. When you let go of the need to be right, the need to fix everyone's thinking, the need to make people see what you see, you paradoxically become more effective. You can engage strategically rather than emotionally. You can choose when to speak and when to conserve your energy. Peter Zappfe's philosophy is dark. There's no sugarcoating it. He believed human consciousness was a tragic mistake and that we're all just limping through life with psychological crutches. But there's also something liberating in that darkness. If you accept that most people are just trying to manage their existential terror, you can stop taking their irrationality so personally. You can stop exhausting yourself trying to wake people up who don't want to be woken. You can't save everyone. You can't make everyone think clearly. And honestly, you shouldn't try. What you can do is live with integrity. Speak truth when it matters. Ask good questions. Preserve your own sanity. And remember that intelligence without wisdom is just another way to suffer. The goal isn't to defeat stupid people. The goal is to survive being conscious in a world that mostly runs on unconsciousness. And sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is simply let people be. What do you think? Is Zapffe too pessimistic, or is he onto something? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this helpful, consider subscribing for more philosophy that actually helps you navigate the real world.